everybody. Welcome to another episode of Chalkboard Chats. My name is Henry. I'm a life coach for teachers. And on this channel, we talk all things teaching and everything in support of teachers. And today I wanted to discuss with you a couple of things that I've come to realize how I go about my work and how I've managed to stave off burnout for the last 4 or 5 years. The first couple of years that I was in education, the first 2 years, especially the last 6 months of those first 2 years were rough. Seriously rough. It was difficult. I had panic attacks and I would just start crying for no reason. I was about to burn out. And then I left this country. I moved to a different country. Then in that country, I realized that I had a depression. Then I moved back to this country. And then I fell into the burnout trap one more time. And it didn't necessarily manifest in like burnout mentally, but this one showed up physically. My psoriasis is usually dormant. It just flared up. And I realized that there was always this, I don't know, draw towards giving too much of myself into education that was just not working for me. This trap is always going to be around me. And I realized that I needed to come up with a kind of a system or a way of beliefs, a set of beliefs that would allow me to continue working and not fall into the way of burnout or put myself, not really that, it's like put myself on the path of burnout, put it that way. And I sat down, I wrote down a couple of things that I apply now in my job to myself without necessarily talking to other people. But I've really noticed how this helps me, one, leave work after work. When I am done with work, I am fully present in my free time. Evenings, weekends, you name it, I'm really present. And two, when I do think about work, it's not with dread. I don't dread it. I don't worry about it. I don't have a fear for it. I just hold it lightly. And I can highly recommend this to everybody. So I wanted to share this in a video. And basically, you can apply these things when you had a rough day, a difficult day with students who are not willing to listen, not willing to learn, and how to not have your whole day ruined. So when you're done with work and you go home, have a look at these beliefs and try to find your truth in it. And it will really help you just move forward, move on from what happened that day without building up the dread for the next day. Also, it makes the overwhelm of the job manageable. I was just recently on a holiday and I came back and there was just a whole pile of admin waiting for me. And management was really relaxed about it. And I just felt very calm. I was like, this will get done when I will get to it. And they were also like, oh my God, it's so much. I was like, it's not a lot, but it will get done. No issue, no problem. And it really has helped me manage the intensity of this job. Let's put it that way. It's like sometimes I feel this job is like a burden, but I'm doing it willingly, which is kind of weird, but it feels like this heavy weight that we have to like take very seriously and yeah, to make this a little bit manageable, to make this more, the heavy weight off your chest so you can breathe again. The first belief that I can highly recommend you adopt is that you are human first. Whatever they want you to be, teacher or therapist or how you call it? We don't have it, but during break time that you're like a police officer, like surveilling the ground and stuff, whatever they want you to do, you're human first. That means your humanness includes all the things that you can and cannot do, all the things that you do well and all the things that you do badly. It just encompasses you as a whole. And that goes before being a teacher. So whenever I drop back to, whoa, wait a minute, hold on, I am a human first, it means I accept that I made decisions at the time with the knowledge that I had, with the tools that was available for me, and that I don't need to go back and punish myself for the outcome of those decisions. I'm human first. So that means sometimes I have amazing days and sometimes I have terrible days. Sometimes I really try my best and the result is absolutely terrible. And that is okay because I'm a human. As like, I was not given a book of rules to follow. We do have, of course, code of conduct, all these things, how to teach, but still, you are a human trying to navigate through this world without a clear guidance, without a road book, without a how to do this. And the how to do this is basically learn as you go. Therefore, all the mistakes I make, I open them, I welcome them with open arms, and I'm like, yes, because I'm human first. Now, teacher second, that means I can drop all the BS and the drama, and I can step up as a teacher. I can show somebody that I believe in their capacity to learn, and they can lean on me for that bit. But then again, I'm a human first. So if I make mistakes in that, that is my humanness. Then number two, sometimes I feel as if we're a little bit hyped up into, oh, you have to do what you love. Therefore, the thing that you do is something that you love. And I don't really agree with it. I do think that it's a job and I do this job to pay the bills because I like to live in a house with running water and, Wi-Fi, and I like to eat nice food and I like to exercise my body and all these things. I need to pay the bills. Therefore, I have a job. Do I love this job? Not always. No. It is still a job. And by separating myself a little bit from the identity, I am a teacher, I am always a teacher, to this is a job that starts and a job that ends. For me, now I have it packaged up into this, it's like compartmentalizing in this like chunk, would I call it, where it's like palatable. Um, it's not too heavy. It's not too all encompassing. It will not take over my time. It will not take over my life. It won't take over my day. It won't take over my thoughts because it's a job. And I deliberately go to the job and start it. And then when it is finished, it is finished. And by distancing myself from it, I have noticed that I am, one, able to be a much better teacher because I give myself that distance. And two, I don't have as much friction with the job anymore, because I guide myself through the going to the job, doing the job, and leaving the job. And I take myself by the hand and sometimes just marvel at the wonderful situations I get myself in. And when the job is done, I am back to just being Henry, just being the human, um, which never goes away during the job. Always during the job, I'm like, I am just a human doing this job, getting paid to do these tasks to the best of my knowledge. And sometimes it's shit. Most of the times it's amazing. But by creating that distance, it feels like something that I can do, and it is a lot easier to overcome challenges. Last year, I had very challenging management, and by having this separation from me as a human and this is a job that I do, I could go to work knowing that I would get into challenging situations with management, but also being willing to walk in and be like, all right, I'm going to learn all the things today. I'm going to learn how to, communicate these things without getting into a fight. I am going to learn how to make it through this observation without, actually, this was a conversation. I was getting ready to have, we had this observation, and then I was getting ready to have this conversation afterwards. And by guiding myself through it, I was able to set the appointment constantly. I was like, hey, I'm ready to meet and talk about the observation. Mind you, this observation went terrible. It was an observation, it was an intervention from their part. But because I took this distance, I was like, no, 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 this is a learning curve. This is a learning step for me. So, me, the human, going to my job, and today I'm going to have a quote unquote difficult conversation where I'm going to learn a lot. I'm going to navigate through these treacherous waters, and I could take myself on this journey. Side note, the meetings were canceled, not by me, but by management. So, but I distinctly remember that feeling of having the observation go terrible and then needing to discuss it with the person that I've already had so many issues with. But because of that distance, I was able to step up and say, yes, we're going to have that meeting. Yes, we're going to have this. Yes, we're going to talk about it. And yes, I'm going to learn about it. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. And then the third one is the idea that your presence, just the presence, you haven't said anything, done anything, but just your presence is valuable on its own. And I say this because I've realized that sometimes I get a little bit, we get a little bit stuck in seeing everything from the teacher's perspective. But every time I think of the time when I was a student, when I was a kid, and I was in class, I remember how sometimes it could just be valuable to not be somewhere else. Now, I had a very happy childhood, so I wasn't really using school to escape my home. But I remember using school to escape the dance class that I had because I went to dance class like once or twice a week. And when I was, I think 11 or 12, no, 13, 14, things went downhill. Um, and I remember being so happy that I could just spend a couple of hours in school, in class, and not at dance class because it just gave me a break from being with those humans. I had a very challenging time with those humans, but in class, it was great. We're doing well. And this is something that I sometimes feel we don't talk about enough, that sometimes just the presence of an adult and how an adult manages a group of humans can be so valuable. And I use this in my English classes often where somehow these students show up late. After the holiday, before the holidays, everybody was on time, it was great. But after the holidays, everybody's late. Everybody's walking in like half an hour after the beginning of the lesson. So I don't want to start with important material to teach the important material in the first 10, 15 minutes. I wait for a little bit more people to arrive and then I start teaching. So I've been having conversations with my teaching assistant. And mind you, these students, they are just learning English and they are able to have conversations, but not always. They can say, I like and I don't like, and that's basically it. So me and my TA, we are just having conversations about life. I ask her about her day. She's a student. I ask her about her holiday. And there have been students who are just looking and listening and observing and just soaking up the conversation. Just that on its own is valuable. And I say this because sometimes we get into this like tailspin of, am I a good enough teacher? Am I applying the right frameworks? Am I setting up the stages right? Am I making sure that everybody gets a chance to speak? Am I doing this well? Am I doing the classroom management system well? All these things we get bombarded with, do better, do better, do better. And to counteract that, I think just the fact that you can sit in a classroom with a teacher and just have a normal interaction is for so many students so valuable, especially if their home situation is challenging, especially if they have issues with their friends and their friends are not in this classroom, then they get a break from that. I think it is so incredibly easy to forget how valuable just the setting can be. And that somebody can, sometimes some of the students, they're like, can I write on the big board? Usually I write on the big board and I have small whiteboards for them. But there's like this allure of writing on teacher's big board. Yes, of course, especially when there's not enough students to start teaching it. So we have this interaction, we have this moment, and they are just, mesmerized by using the big marker on the big board and how easy it is to erase. And I think that we sometimes forget how valuable it can be. Now, with all of this said, there's another one that I want to share with you, and that is if we are lucky as a teacher, if we're lucky, these students might remember our name, they might remember our face, they might remember something that we taught them. But if I think back of when I was a student and what I remember from the teachers, from some of the classes, it's not much. Not that they were a bad teacher, it was just I was in my head. Have you ever tried to teach a love struck 14-year-old? Nothing stuck. And I remember my parents were like, school is not going well. And I was like, it's actually going really well because, I'm sitting next to my crush and it's amazing. But I was not picking up anything because in my head, I was somewhere else. I was elsewhere. And if we are lucky, we might make a change in their lives. They might remember us. They may be able to recall some of the things that we taught them. But for most of the teachers, most students will forget most of the things. If I ask around now, what did you remember from school? Most people say the same thing. They remember a couple of faces and remember a couple of lessons. And of course, you can't really go back now and say, well, in this lesson, I learned this. In this lesson, I learned this. It's basically the mountain that you see now of skills has started to accumulate when we were younger. So I'm not saying that that is like, direct correlation, but to look at the classes and to see, I've had different teachers for every year. So I've had in the first, 8 years? The first school is 8 years. I've had a minimum of 8 different teachers. I think I've had more because some teachers burned out, other one got sick, other one, the class was not big enough for a different teacher, so they merged classes. So I've had a minimum of 8 teachers. Some I don't remember. Then when I went to high school, the equivalent of the Dutch high school, that is, for me, it was 12 to 17, 5 years. I've had different teachers for different subjects every single year. So I would have, I think, 10 teachers in the first year, then maybe another 10 in the second. Half of them were new. So after 2 years, I already had 15 teachers. I don't remember all of them. I truly, truly don't. I remember just vague things from different teachers. I remember certain instances where I felt a certain way, but that's it. Most of the teachers were just this tiny little blip on my radar. And now I can't recall what they taught me. I don't remember what we did. I don't remember most of the lesson. And most of all, I don't remember the person. I don't remember the face, not the name. And this is not like a in any way to, how sad nobody remember us, but it's the truth. We're maybe a blip on the radar. So if we are doing a bad job and if we're not being able to, lift the burden of this job, we're struggling, everything is overwhelming, and we're not having a good time, don't worry, because most of it, in the end, they will not remember you specifically. What they do remember is how they felt. And that is something that has, when I learned this, that we remember certain situations and events because of the feeling, I have made it a point to make sure that in my class, there is no feeling of fear of me. And the only way I'm doing this is that I've been really, really afraid of teachers when I was younger, because they made me do things that I was just not comfortable with, especially my English teacher. He gave us books, which I highly, highly recommend, but he gave us books and then wanted every lesson, every class for somebody to stand in front of the class and talk in English about the class, about the book. I was like, oh my God. And he made it so, so scary that we were dreading the day that we had English class. I was dreading the moment that I walked into the classroom and everybody was like hiding behind their books because we were so afraid and so worried. Now, I wasn't afraid of public speaking, but the way this teacher had set it up, it was very, very scary. And I do not want that ever in my class. I do not want my students to fear me, to fear the activities. And when I see that that is happening, I immediately try to change the course so that they don't feel that fear. But other than that, we won't remember much. I remember feeling very happy because there was one teacher who was incredibly funny. I remember feeling astonished because there was one teacher who was teaching me philosophy, and I was like, wait, what? I remember feeling very confused because there were things in the English language that didn't make sense, so I needed a tutor. I remember feeling very competitive with math. My friend was very good at math, and I was like, but I can be good as well. So we became very competitive in math, and that is the reason why I got such a good grade, because I love that competitiveness. And the teacher was very good at doing this as a fun game. Um, and the rest is just like a little blip. And it feels so free when I think of my students in like 10, 20 years time, that they may or may not remember me. And I'm like, I can do such amazing things. We can have such an amazing time together. And at the same time, it's also me being a human first and a teacher second. It means for me that I can get to experiment with fun activities and fun games, and I get to see them grow and see them can be confused and then get to the point of understanding. And we're like, oh, it all makes sense. And it makes for the job, it makes it so fun for me to do this job when I have a little bit of distance and like freedom for me. I'm not free in the job necessarily, but freedom for me to be playful with it. And the creativity and the fun and all these things then feel easy and manageable. And when I didn't have all these beliefs, it felt like such a heavy thing because we look at it as if it is a duty. It's not a duty, it's an absolute privilege to be in the classroom as a teacher and to be in the classroom as a student, which is amazing. It's a privilege. It's not a heavy duty. You don't have to do this perfectly because nobody's doing this perfectly. As a student, same thing. You try your best, and sometimes your best is absolutely terrible. And by embracing all of this, I think it makes for better education and more fun in education. So these are the beliefs that I come back to every time it gets a little bit rough, it gets a little bit heavy. Um, we're all like, "Ah, it's so hard." But when I come back to these beliefs that I'm a human first and I'm doing this job because I get paid for it, I do these tasks to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my abilities, and I go from it from that perspective. I can do this job and I get to have a lot of fun with it. I get to meet many interesting people. I get to spend some time with these humans. They learn something. I think most of the time they learn something. I learned so much from it. And that makes for a really nice, fun experience. So I can highly recommend adopting these. If they're a little bit far for you, take them lightly. You don't have to adopt them immediately and see how they fit, but take them lightly. How would it be like? What would it be like if you showed up and you're like, listen, I'm a human. I'm trying this out. I'm doing my best. I'm figuring it out as I go. And hopefully you get to see some changes in your life. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.